Well, thank you all so much for joining once again. My name is Harrinarine. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions here. I'm sure that at some point or another, I've gotten the chance to speak with most of you, either during an interview or just sort of as a prospective applicant, or at this point, an admitted student to Villanova Law. We're really, really happy that you all were able to take some time out of your busy schedules to join us for this panel. It's a really unique panel, a really special one that's centered on public interest law, pro bono opportunities at Villanova. I'm joined today by a great group of individuals. I'm going to let them all introduce themselves, but I'm really excited to get to chat with you all today. We want to make sure that you all are able to ask all of your questions. That's what we're here for, to really answer your questions. And so as we go throughout the presentation today, don't hesitate to throw your questions into the Q&A box for us. It'd be really helpful to get a sense of what your questions are for an alum, for a professor, for someone who works in the career strategy office, and also for current students. So don't stop, put your questions in the Q&A box as we go through this presentation today. And I'm gonna throw it over to Professor Marianne Robinson to get started with introductions, and then I'll do Sharon, Lizzie, and then our current students.
Hi, everybody. Let me echo the welcome. It's nice to see you here. So as Phil said, I'm Professor Marianne Robinson. I teach in the second year. I teach second year students exclusively, and it's a skills course. It's called Transactional Legal Writing. I always say it ought to be called Not Litigation, because it's all the skills that are not related to going to court. So a little bit of drafting, client advising, client interviewing, that kind of thing. I probably here with the hat on, though, more because I'm the co-chair of the faculty's public interest committee. So I have a big interest in helping students pursue public interest careers and pursue pro bono work while they're here. And I'm also the advisor of the Pro Bono Society. So welcome. Thrown to you, Sharon.
Okay, thanks. I'm Sharon Buckingham. I work in the Office of Career Strategy. I am one of the general advisors, so we all are assigned, or you would be assigned a general advisor, and I would be one of them, but I also am the advisor in the office who works with students who are interested in public interest, public service, and judicial clerkships. I am also the chair of NALP's section on public service. NALP is a national organization of career professionals in law firms and law schools. And I am an active member of the Philadelphia Bar Association's public interest section and oversee a summer brown bag program on public interest careers, which I encourage all of you, regardless of where you end up in school, to learn about and participate in.
Right. Hi, everyone. I'll echo what everyone said. Thank you for joining this tonight. It's good to, I guess, sort of meet everyone. My name is Lizzie Flanagan. I am a 2017 alum of Villanova Law. I was Phil's classmate. We graduated together. And now I am an attorney at the Defender Association of Philadelphia. I work in a specialized unit called the Child Advocacy Unit. So my role is to represent children who are involved with the child welfare system, so foster care, in-home services, truancy, child abuse cases, that whole realm of stuff. So I practice in Philadelphia Family Court. Despite taking Professor Robinson's transactional legal writing and saying I never wanted to go to court, I'm in court 3 or 4 days a week, doing different types of hearings in front of different family court judges. I also do a lot of work with different areas of these children's lives. So education, mental health, immigration, housing, all sorts of things that would affect children. And I've been at that role since 2017. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. We are the current Villanova Law students here to talk to you. My name is Elisabeth. I am in my last year of law school. We're both 3Ls, and I went to Loyola University, Maryland for my undergrad. In my summers of law school here, I was at the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania and the Pennsylvania Attorney Generals in their civil litigation department. I am primarily interested in going into litigation, particularly civil rights litigation and constitutional litigation. That's what I focused at the Pennsylvania AGs, and just had a great experience with that. Additionally, my fun fact, I guess, is that I have been to 17 countries.
Hi, everyone. My name's Shaen. I'm also a 3L student with Elisabeth. I went to the College of William and Mary for undergrad. My fun fact is that I'm in the Lady Gaga documentary on Netflix, 12:38, Clapping in the Crowd. You can see me in a blue shirt and khaki shorts. My experiences in law school in public interest have included my first summer working at the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission in the state, local, and tribal program. And then for the past 3 semesters, I've worked in the law school at the Institute to Address Commercial Sexual Exploitation. I will be working at a private firm upon graduation, but I want public interest to maintain a large role in my life as it does now. I'm currently director of our public interest fellowship program. Elisabeth is my vice director. So if you want to hear any more about that program, we can, all of us can actually speak to it. Lizzie and Phil were both former board members as well in their time at the law school.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Jerry's famous, as he was saying, Lady Gaga, Netflix. But we really do look forward to getting to answer your questions today, to share more about public interest offerings, the public interest fellowship program, the Pro Bono Society, courses, externships, sort of anything that you can think of or have questions about. We want to be able to address those things as you all are in the process right now of considering what law school to attend. And I know it's a really big decision. So whatever we can do to assist or to sort of answer your questions, please go ahead and use the Q&A box during this presentation to do so. I'm going to ask our panelists really quickly to go into the chat box and send your email address, if comfortable, out to the attendees. I'm going to do that really quickly. And if the rest of you feel comfortable doing so, please feel free to. To our attendees, take down someone's email address. If you hear someone talk today and you want to follow up with them, or if you have additional questions to ask, or if they can be helpful to you in any way, don't hesitate to reach out to them. I know that they're a great resource and they're more than willing to assist and to help you all. So Professor Robinson, I'm coming to you for this first question. As a faculty member here on this panel today, I wanted to ask you, when you think about individuals who are interested in public interest law, what are some of the courses at the law school that come to mind for you that students may want to take? Maybe there are newer courses at the law school that, they're working on starting, maybe there are current courses at the law school. What might a public interest student look to take? What are some of those elective options that are of interest?
Oh, sure, Phil, thanks for that. Well, there are a lot of courses, and part of the interesting thing about being a public interest lawyer is that it could span a lot of different areas of practice, right? So you might be interested in health law, in which case you want to take some of the health law courses. You might be interested in criminal law and take criminal law related courses. There are certainly designated public interest kind of courses like poverty law that people would take. But aside from that, just about anything might be related to being a public service or working in the public interest. I guess when I think particularly, though, about it, I think about our clinics, because we have 6 clinics. And now I'm going to try and say what they all are. So we have a tax law clinic. We have a health law clinic. We have a farm workers clinic. We have a clinic for asylum and refugees. We have a civil practice clinic, and I'm missing one.
Entrepreneurship.
Thank you, the Clinic for Entrepreneurship. And so all of those are areas where people who are interested in serving the public can get involved, because they all represent clients who are usually below the poverty line. Well, I guess they're exclusively below the poverty line. And it provides a wonderful way to find an entree into doing that kind of work and seeing what that kind of work is like. And even if it's not the exact area that you wind up practicing in, it still gives you great practical skills with this overarching goal of serving the public. So I think our clinics are the best example of what you would want to get involved in here if you're interested in being a public interest lawyer.
I guess I would say my question ended up being a bit of a trick one. And what Professor Robinson said, I think, is actually the perfect response. I think oftentimes individuals think of public interest law and imagine that that comes with a specific curriculum when it really doesn't, right? Public interest law is vast and it can end up being lots of different types of things. So I'm going to actually go to our current students for this one. And Lizzie, you can feel free to answer as well. If you can think of a class that comes to mind, maybe there's one or two that relate specifically to the area of law that you have a passion for, right? And the course that sort of corresponds to that you've taken at the law school. For you, Elizabeth, I don't know whether it relates to constitutional law, whatever the case is, but if you want to share it, let us know what those classes are. Obviously, they're electives. So for everybody in attendance, these are classes you're going to get to take your second and your third year. You have sort of full control over your curriculum where you get to take classes that relate to your interests more directly. So I'll let the current students answer. And then Lizzie, if you'd like to answer as well, you can do that.
One thing we did want to bring up too is that because we don't have an in-house criminal law clinic, we do have kind of like a course that you can register for, but it is an externship with the Philadelphia Defenders and District Attorney's Office as well. One of our good friends is actually doing the PD externship right now and is loving it because it's hands-on, doing prelims, you're being a public defender. But I'll let Elisabeth answer the actual question.
In addition to the electives like Phil was talking about, there are some required courses that you do have to take that I do think give you a great opportunity to explore areas of public interest you're interested in. I'm primarily thinking about your seminar requirements. So you are required to graduate to participate in a seminar class. So instead of having the traditional final exam, a seminar will have a academic research paper that has to be at least 9,000 words. I know that might sound scary right now, but once you get there with footnotes and everything, it's not that scary. But the seminars that are offered really provide a great chance to explore areas of public interest you're really passionate about. I'm currently in Native American law. Jerry is in a police misconduct seminar. We also have seminars that address gender and sexuality, race in the law, poverty in the law, health law as well, privacy in terms of bodily autonomy and cybersecurity. So those seminars are required courses that you have to take, and they're a great way to kind of show what you're interested about in public interest more generally. In addition to those, the electives that are offered, I'm currently in a critical race theory class with our current director of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that's a fabulous class. I'm really enjoying it and learning a lot. And something specific to my interests is I took civil rights litigation with Professor Ravenel, who was herself a civil rights litigator. So that class was really helpful. I actually, took the textbook with me into the office because it had a lot of the cases and the answers that I needed in the briefs that I was looking at every day.
I think my boring answer is I'm going into labor and employment law. So I love my labor law class, my employment law class with Professor Giuliano, and my employment discrimination class with Professor Giuliano. Highly recommend employment discrimination. But my exciting answer, getting outside of my comfort zone, I took the Villanova sentencing workshop this year with Professor Chanenson, which is a really unique opportunity as a student. You, with students, but also judges, DAs, PDs, and members of the Sentencing Commission for Pennsylvania, go to a workshop twice a semester, and you sentence real cases that have either gone before the judges in the workshop or other judges that have submitted cases they thought would be interesting. And you, over a period of 3 days, just discuss with all these individuals why you sentenced the way you did, and why certain crimes are sentenced the way that they are. It's incredibly interesting, and it's really helpful, especially if you're interested in criminal law, going into a DA's or PD's office.
You want to jump in there, Lizzie?
Sure. So yeah, I would kind of echo what's been said already, specifically about the clinics. I did 2 semesters with the farm workers clinic during my time at Villanova, and it was an awesome experience both to work directly with clients as well to get some hands-on experience with different areas of law. And I'm also hearing the seminar classes that are there now, and I'm a little jealous because most of those I don't think were there when I was, but I do remember I took 2 seminar courses. One was, I think it was just called public interest law. So it was a really wide range of topics that I thought was extremely interesting and kind of helped me see different areas that kind of fall under the big umbrella of public interest. And I also took a course in education law that was the same thing. It was a more specified area of practice, but still a really broad topic. So I think those classes are really invaluable and semi-related to classes, but also just to being at Villanova. There are a ton of professors at Villanova who might not necessarily be teaching a specific public interest focused course, but who have some experience in different fields and in different public interest related work. And they're just a wealth of knowledge and are amazing resources and are always willing to talk about their work and their practice. And that was something that I really benefited from during my time at Villanova.
The one thing that came up here that sort of blends into the next question relates to experiential learning. For those in attendance, of course, that's our clinics, that's our externships, and they're required for graduation, but you really do have full control over what you choose to do. You need those credits, but you can either choose to do a clinic in collaboration with an externship, only clinics, only externships, so you can have the best of both worlds as well. And so I want to go back to our students, but also to Professor Robinson, if you have thoughts on other types of externships and experiential learning opportunities that students have been able to take advantage of. And I can also share some as well. But just to sort of share what you have been exposed to during your time as a student, anything outside of the school that's not a clinic, what you've worked on. I'll share really quickly that when I was a student in my 3rd year, I externed for the Pennsylvania Institutional Law Project, and that's a nonprofit that provides free legal service to incarcerated individuals in the Commonwealth whose civil constitutional rights are being violated. So really neat organization. There are a lot of groups like that that are very niche in their practice area, but you really have exposure to find that group, that organization, that pro bono opportunity that really fits in with what you're looking for. Elisabeth, Jerry, and also Professor Robinson, if you have thoughts on that and your experiences as well.
Well, first off, there is no shortage of organizations in the public interest field where you could do an externship and get credit for. Currently, and I love how I can share this number, our PIF fellows have worked at over 130 public interest organizations, most of which are in the state of Pennsylvania. So anything that you might be interested in, you can find an externship opportunity in. Something cool that I can talk about is our Institute to Address Commercial Sexual Exploitation, where I've gotten all of my externship credit for law school. The Institute's really cool because it's kind of a melding of both academia and that clinic experiential learning environment. In the Institute, we do represent survivors of human trafficking, so mostly in expungement cases and record clearing cases where they've been convicted of prostitution or a list of 6 other offenses that Pennsylvania now has a law surrounding. If you are a survivor of human trafficking, you can get all of those expunged from your record. But we also do, a majority of what we do is policy work, where we research the law, look at laws that are coming out across the country, look at what's happening in Pennsylvania, and aim to educate, especially both policymakers and key players like district attorneys on the laws, on human trafficking, and on what's happening and what that kind of climate looks like. And it's been really great to be a part of. I've done a lot of really cool projects, one of which we're writing currently, it's going to get published soon, hopefully, is a legal guide to representation of sex trafficking survivors in Pennsylvania that will be available to practitioners, which is really cool. So that's been a wonderful experience. I can't talk highly enough about it.
I did a clinic in my 2nd year. I was with the Clinic for Asylee, Refugee, and Immigrant Services. So I represented a client who was having his individual merits hearing to decide whether or not he qualified as an asylee here in the United States and whether or not he could stay. And that was just a great all-around experience. I worked with a partner, so having that teamwork and that collaboration was really worthwhile, and just having the ability and the experience to not only work with a client, but to really use trauma-informed lawyering in a way that I don't think a lot of people get the opportunity to do so, especially while they're still in law school. Additionally, like Phil was saying, there's no shortage of externships that you can do. We have some externships set aside where you can register like you would register for a class. And then we also have kind of a build your own option where you just submit, you know, I would like to work at this place, and this is how many hours I'm planning on doing. And the director of externships, Professor Matthew McGovern, will work with you to get those credits squared away, get you an advisor that's here in the law school to kind of monitor how your experience is going. I was at the Pennsylvania Attorney General's for 2 semesters, and one of those semesters I was getting credit at Villanova as an extern. And that was just a great experience as well, because we also had these monthly meetings with kind of the entire extern pool. So everybody who was doing an independent externship got to come together and kind of talk about their experiences. And there were people in that group who were at, you know, like the AIDS Law Project, the Innocence Project. There were a couple people at the Office of Disciplinary Counsel for the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. So it's definitely a varied group with a lot of public interest options that can be applied and done for credit.
Thank you all for that answer. I'm gonna move on to the next one, just because I do want to be mindful of the time. There are some questions in the Q&A box. I promise I'm going to get to those. I'm not ignoring you all, so definitely don't worry about adding questions in there. I want to go to Sharon to ask a question in relation to career strategy. Sharon, can you share with our attendees how the Career Strategy Office assists students that are seeking public interest opportunities over the summer, public interest careers and job placements after they graduate? And while you're talking about that, do you also want to discuss with everyone what the Dorothy Day pro bono award is, and sort of what that looks like for individuals that are wanting to do public interest work or pro bono work while they're a student at the school?
Okay, I can do that. The Career Office can help and does work with students who are interested in public service in a number of ways. Obviously, we do advising, but I will sit down with the students who are going to interview for public service positions to focus on, like, what is different about this type of interview? What are public service employers looking for that may be very different than what a law firm is looking for? I help people with application materials, particularly fellowship materials, which a number of students apply for every year. And over the years, we have had students who have graduated and had fellowships from Equal Justice Works Foundation, from the Independence Foundation, ABA tax bar, Stoneleigh Foundation, all sorts of fellowships. But we work with people to really put forth what shows their interest and commitment to public service, because that's something employers look for. Over the course of 3 years, I work with students on how they can develop their resume so that it demonstrates when an employer is looking at it, oh, I want to talk with you because clearly have an interest in public service. We're not just oh, I'll talk to them too. I talk with people about how to stay focused on public service, which sometimes is hard when you are surrounded by people who are, concerned about all sorts of things that may not be an issue for you if you know what your path is. So I try to help people, if that makes sense, stay focused on what their path is and not worry about the things that are around them that actually don't affect being a public service lawyer. We keep a lot of resources for students interested in public service. So just as an example, I have created and continue to update materials on funding for summer fellowships, different opportunities for postgraduate fellowships, government honors programs, because we also work with people on government service and what does government look for and what do those interviewers look for and how is that different? I talk with people a lot about judicial clerkships just because that is a way of moving forward and making yourself even more marketable in the public service community. We do a lot of programming, both in our professional development course, where we have panels early on with a lot of practitioners who talk about what they do. There are always a couple of public interest panels, a couple of government panels, a couple of criminal panels, immigration panels, health law, like a lot of different lawyers talking about what they do so that students start to understand that public interest does not just mean one thing. And then the last thing I want to say just about the career office in general is that we are in really exciting times because we have just gotten a humongous endowment for professional development, which in large part is going to increase experiential learning opportunities, pro bono opportunities. There is going to be a brand new position created, the Director of Public Service and Pro Bono Initiatives, which means that there will be, in addition to me providing career guidance to students on public interest matters, there is going to be a person fully dedicated to creating more opportunities for students to do pro bono work, having more time to network with the public interest community. I try to do outside things like NALP to engage even nationally with other public service career advisors to get a feel of the land and figure out more opportunities. But in the next couple of years, there are going to be even more opportunities for Villanova students. I don't know, Marianne, if you want to address Dorothy Day. I certainly can, but you're welcome to.
Day Award is an award that students get if who have participated in at least 60 hours of public service work during their time at Villanova. This would be work in addition to classwork, externships. So it's pro bono. It's a pro bono award. So it's not something you would get paid for or not something that you would be getting classroom credit for, but it's participating in other activities. And a lot of times students are doing that through activities in our pro bono society, which include, we have Christian legal clinics in Philadelphia that we work with a lot. We have a face-to-face, which is in Montgomery County, I guess, working in a birth certificate clinic, helping people, low-income people get birth certificates, which is just so important as an entree into anything, jobs, benefits, all kinds of things. The public defender's offices, the Innocence Project, those are the ones I'm thinking of. The VITA or VITA, I'm never sure how you say that, the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program. So there's those kinds of opportunities that students participate in, and there can be others as well. Sometimes people will identify their own opportunity that they want to pursue. It's not necessarily one that either the Pro Bono Society's organized or anybody at Villanova's organized, but they want to go ahead and do this volunteer work. As long as it's being supervised by an attorney and they vouch for the hours, then students submit those hours. And if they've done 60 hours over the course of their 3 years, they get a special recognition at graduation, special cords that they wear that indicate that they've completed that service for people.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Professor Robinson. And for sort of going through generally what some of the activities are available to individuals who might want to join the Pro Bono Society. As Professor Robinson mentioned, there are a lot of other opportunities and projects you can be a part of. I know there are projects related to veterans and immigration law as well, street law. So there are a lot of opportunities to get involved with the Pro Bono Society to get those hours to do it, to help, right, individuals that are in underserved areas and underserved communities who don't have access to legal representation, but for these types of pro bono programs. Lizzie, I'm going to come to you for a question, then I'm going to come to our current students for one more question, because I want to start getting to the questions from the attendees. Lizzie, the question I want to ask you is sort of twofold. The first part is, how would you say Villanova prepared you for a career in public interest law? I know that you mentioned that you've been with the Defenders Association since 2017. That's when we graduated. So you've been there for what's coming up on 5 years now, which is amazing. And I want to just learn more about sort of how you feel like Villanova prepared you for that next step where you are currently. And then there's a question in the chat box that says, when you were deciding on law school, did you focus more on clinic offerings related to your area of interest or more general public interest career support? What ultimately guided your decision? So I'll ask you that question and you can reference it. It's in the chat box, not the Q&A box.
All right. So actually those answers are kind of combined. So when I came into Villanova, a lot of the focus of the law school is this "where law meets business" slogan. So I was a little hesitant about, the public interest community at Villanova initially, but after like about 2 days, realized that that's not something to be concerned about. There's a whole wide range of things at the law school that really helped me in my career path, both with course offerings, clinics and externships, internships, and then also just the community, both of students and faculty, that there's just a really strong and vibrant community of people who are interested in public interest work and who are very supportive of, hey, I found this opportunity that seems like something you might be interested in, or, here's this seminar or this lecture that I went to that you might be interested in seeing as well. And so I think, because I came in with a pretty broad focus, knowing I wanted to do public interest, but I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. So Villanova really gave me the opportunity to explore a number of different areas, take classes in different areas that kind of introduced me to things that I didn't even know about. And then clinic-wise, I was not focused at all on the specific clinic offerings. The farm workers clinic, which is the one that I did, was not something that I ever really thought about. It's not an area of law that I knew anything about, but I was really happy to join the clinic just to have the experience of, exactly what you do in all of the clinics, which is have client interaction, which is work with a practicing attorney who can kind of guide you with how to interact with clients, how to prepare for court hearings, how to draft documents. And I think that really helped me kind of hone in on what my interests were. And then I think, all of the skills and everything that I gained in the law school have really helped me, even though, as I said earlier, my goal was to never be inside a courtroom. I still somehow managed to sneakily get those skills where I felt prepared to be in court, even without taking any of the trial advocacy classes, just with my experiential learning and conversations with professors and faculty about this is how to just be prepared to kind of interact in the real world. And I can't say enough about the professional development program as well, which was something that I think actually had just started our 1L year. So we were kind of the guinea pig class.
You were the very first class.
And it was a great thing to have. The professional development program really kind of gave us those real world lessons that I don't think we would have really gotten otherwise. So kind of a combination of all of those things really helped me come into my job not feeling like I was completely clueless with everything.
And Lizzie, something that you just said rang a bell for me. I know that question that was just asked maybe also points to the specific areas of law that our clinics focus on. And I just wanted to make a note here for our attendees that even if you heard what Professor Robinson said, we have a clinic that's based on tax law, civil work, law and entrepreneurship, immigration work, and I'm missing one, I'm sure. And if you're not interested in any of those areas of law, I would encourage you not to be dissuaded, not to feel as though that you can't join any of those clinics and feel like you're making, a meaningful impact in the lives of your clients. Because at the end of the day, one, of course, you're going to be doing that. You're going to be working hand in hand with partners, by yourself, to represent individuals who do need this legal representation. But the skill sets, and this is what Lizzie just said, the skills that you acquire in our clinics are wholly transferable to other areas of practice. So don't, pigeonhole yourself thinking that you have to find a school with a clinic that does this niche area of law. It may happen, it may not happen, right? But just know that the clinics that we offer at our school set you up with real life clients that you're going to be working with, that you're going to be representing. I was a part of the clinic. Elizabeth was a part of the clinic for asylum and refugee status, our CARES clinic. And you really are. When it comes time to represent your client in court, you're the one standing before the judge representing your client. As scary as that might sound, or as sort of nerve-wracking as that might sound as a law student, it's the experience that you kind of want to have, that you don't know that you want to have, that you need to have when you're a student, that you get to have, right, at Villanova. Elizabeth and Jerry, I'm coming to you for this question before we get to our attendees' questions. And I want you all to just go through for us 2 different programs. Jerry already mentioned it. PIF, what PIF means, what PIF stands for, what PIF does, and what PIF offers. And then Elizabeth, if you want to start by just describing what LRAP is, our loan repayment assistance program that assists graduates who end up working in public interest work. And I'll just put a plug in there. Lizzie was a recipient of LRAP, right? So it happens, people get it. It's there to assist our graduates that do work in public interest, in the public interest realm. But Elizabeth, if you want to start with that, and then Jerry, I'll turn it over to you for PIF.
So I do want to say, we're going to keep this very short, but I do want to say both our LRAP program and our fellowship program fall under our PIF umbrella. The Public Interest Fellowship really is our mecca for public interest students at the law school, and we pride ourselves on being able to economically support public interest students in their careers. And Phil, we're going to break your agenda a little bit. I'm going to start because our fellowship program affects you while you're a student. So a lot of times as a public interest student, your summer internships will be unpaid. Now you have 2 options. You can either get externship credit for that summer, or you can apply to be one of our fellows. And so what we do as an organization is we raise money throughout the year to support public interest students with a $5,000 fellowship over either one of their summers in their time at the law school for a job at a public interest organization. We are expanding and we are moving into the realms of career support and working with Sharon and that new public interest director Sharon mentioned. But our main function right now is that funding. So throughout the year, you will volunteer with us at what we call solicitations for our annual auction. Our auction is the event of the spring at the law school. We fill the entire building with silent auction items, then have a live auction where we auction off vacation homes, the opportunity to pie a professor in the face. It's a wonderful event. Elizabeth and I are both sitting in the PIF office right now, staring at a wall of things that we still have to do for the auction, but it's a great bonding event for public interest students. It's something we have such a strong ownership over. In 25 years of this event, we've raised over $1 million, supported 242 fellows, who have worked at over 130 organizations. So we're well on our way this year, and we're hoping to be able to raise enough money to support 25 fellows for our 25th year. So I'll turn it over to Elizabeth to talk about the LRAP program.
Absolutely. So on the post-graduation side, when people enter into public service and have, amounts of student debt that are accrued, it can become difficult to make student loan payments. And, a lot of the times, unfortunately, public interest lawyers are on the lower end of the salary scale, so they do suffer financial hardship. Enter Loan Repayment Assistance Program. So LRAP for short is a program that PIF administrates, facilitates, and runs. We used to fund it ourselves through all of our fundraising. Now it is privately endowed by 2 alumni donors. And that means that every year 2 students who have graduated in the 5 preceding class years can apply to get $12,000 split up over 3 years to use to alleviate their financial hardship that comes from both being in public service and having student debt. This is always very helpful because most people who are in public service legal jobs do apply for the loan repayment forgiveness from the federal government. If you have to be at that job for 10 years, it has to be a qualifying employment, and then all of your loans are essentially forgiven after 10 years. But in that 10-year period, you have to make minimum payments that are graduated based on your income. So to help with those minimum payments, we offer LRAP to students who have demonstrated need and demonstrated interest in public service and commitment to public service. And it's a phenomenal program. And I think that it really shows that there is Villanova institutional support even after you graduate, especially because the applications that come before the fellowship committee, the LRAP committee, the members that will be there will say, oh, I know this student and they will never leave public service. Like, this is what they're passionate about. This person is so deserving, and things like that. So it's nice to see on the back end that once you, throw your cap up in the air in May, you're not just forgotten about.
Thank you both for that. And this next question is coming right back to you. And I know that you all probably already answered this one to a degree, but it's in our Q&A box. And the question says, did you enter law school knowing you were interested in public interest work? If not, what classes did you take that helped direct your path? So you can just speak generally about what that looked like for you coming into law school.
I'll get the short part out of the way.
Okay.
Yes, I knew coming in.
I had no idea what I wanted to do coming into law school, and I found my passion for public interest by attending the first PIF meeting of the year. I'll be honest, I had no idea what public interest law even meant as a 1L student. So going to the PIF meeting and hearing about all the wonderful opportunities that students who really wanted to make a difference in the legal community, especially for people who don't often have the funds to seek legal representation, what they could do. So it was kind of finding that public interest law student community at the law school that really showed me how I want that to be a part of my life and how I do want to be a part of the public interest legal community. Your first set of classes in your 1L year all will intersect with public interest in some way, be it crim law, civ pro, torts, contracts, con law especially, property, and then if you take criminal procedure as your elective, your 1L. It's all a great kind of introduction to your opportunities as a public interest lawyer, because that's what we talk about a lot in PIF, is that public interest isn't pigeonholed in one area of the law whatsoever. It affects every area. There's an organization that's doing something in that area public interest oriented. So that's kind of my advice, is don't pigeonhole yourself and think that I have to be doing something to do public interest law when I get to law school. Find your passion about what you're interested in, and I guarantee you that you'll find the public interest community here, and you'll find a way for you to get involved in that area of the law in a public interest, public service manner.
Awesome. Thank you both for that. So I'm going to answer one of these questions really quickly. The question says, when will we be able to begin our public interest courses? Would this be in our second year of law school? And if we are interested in a variety of public interest areas, would we be able to work with our advisors to direct us in the right direction as far as courses, seminars, externships? So 100%, you are going to be able to work with those individuals. I would say that it's across different spectrums too. You'd be working with a professor like Professor Robinson. You'd be working with, Elisabeth mentioned, the director of externships, Matt McGovern, to identify what externships you are interested in pursuing. Every student that comes to Villanova is also given a faculty advisor. And so that's a professor that you may never actually have in class. Like my faculty advisor never taught me, or you may end up having that professor multiple times over the course of your 3 years. You can definitely go to that professor as well for guidance, for them to sort of help spell out maybe what classes you want to take in what semesters to help set yourself up over the course of your 3 years. And yes, you will start taking those classes in your second year of law school. The first year curriculum is set. The only class that you get to take, or choose, I should say, in your first year is an elective in the second semester. So in your 1L spring semester, you get to choose an elective. Outside of that, the classes in your first year are set in stone. Professor Robinson, can I come to you for this next question? It's a question about And this might be just your opinion, but the question says, is there a particularly unique public service opportunity at Villanova that students generally speak highly of?
So I'm going to answer that question. Before I do, though, I want to just tag on to something that you just said about when you could start taking public interest courses. So that may not be taking them until your second and third year, but you can still do pro bono volunteering in your first year. So you don't have to wait to take courses to do that. And the places where you're volunteering are happy to have 1Ls, even though they haven't maybe taken that particular subject area. So I just want to make sure that you know that you can do something even before you take courses. And then back to the question that you just asked me, which is unique opportunity. I'm sorry, say it for me again, one more time. Sorry.
Sure. No, the question says, is there a particularly unique public service opportunity at Villanova that students generally speak highly of?
Oh, well, this is just going to be so individual, right? I feel like you've heard this already from Lizzie and Elisabeth and Jerry. The things they've talked about that have been meaningful to them have been different. So Lizzie talked about her work with the Farm Workers Clinic, and Elisabeth talked about her externships. And I think that's exactly how it goes. I think people find their own thing that's particularly meaningful to them and in their career. And Jerry talked about the CSE Institute. There's just so many different things that there's not one path or one thing that everybody says, that's what you got to do. That's the best thing to do, because everybody's passions are different and everybody's experiences are different.
And that's sort of a good answer in the sense that obviously you're supposed to forge your own path and really identify what you're looking for in an experience, and being able to go to a school that has offerings in all sorts of avenues is what's going to allow you to really expose yourself and sort of fine tune what you want the experience to be like. Jerry's talked a bit about his experience in the CSE Institute. And there's a question, Jerry, about that, getting involved in your first year, which I know you can do in sort of a very limited fashion, but I know that you've done work with them, as you mentioned, the last couple semesters. So if you just want to share for everybody what the CSE Institute does, sort of the work that you've been able to do with them over the course of the last few semesters. But yeah, after your first semester, I mean, I guess I should put it this way, you really can get involved in sort of a involuntary way. You can attend events that they're hosting, things of that nature. But in your second and third year, that's where you can become an extern and get more heavily involved and receive academic credit for the CSE Institute. But Jerry, go ahead and chat about that.
So there is one opportunity to get involved during your 1L year. We have our 1L blog competition where you submit a blog on a prompt that we give you, and we select between 3 and 4 students' blogs to publish. Once you get selected, you are invited to attend our institute meetings for the rest of the semester. And a lot of our kind of career CSE Institute members who are part of it for all 3 years starting out in that blog competition and then just stayed on, be it as an extern or a research assistant, which is kind of a more senior extern that gets paid in the Institute. But the work in the Institute's really great. If you want to get involved with client work, meeting with clients and working on expungement cases, you easily can. And we really do a lot of other research for our clients as well, be it on how to find them housing, on how to get them a driver's license if their driver's license has been suspended. A lot of great work in those areas. But we also do a lot of research in areas that you might be interested that intersect with human and sex trafficking. I was really passionate about police misconduct and police sexual misconduct, and did a lot of research on in the Institute about how that intersects with survivors of human trafficking. That's why I'm in my police conduct seminar now, to further that research and write my seminar paper on it. But whatever you're interested in the Institute, in the world of commercial sexual exploitation, you can find an opportunity. A lot of research, a lot of writing, a lot of policies, a lot of getting involved with policymakers, really interesting stuff. I know it's a short answer because we don't have much time. If you want to email me about it, or email Shay Rhodes, who is our director, or Mary Haggerty or Alexia Tomlinson, who are our fellows, we'd all be happy to chat with you about it. I'll put those names in the chat box.
Yeah, and everybody feel free to reach out to Jerry directly, and he can always set you up with them as well, as they're more than willing to assist. And I'll put in a real quick plug. We are actually doing a panel for the CSE Institute specifically. So all the individuals Jerry just mentioned will actually be speaking on a panel similar to this one next month. I'm getting the date really quickly so I don't forget. It's on the 15th of March, on Tuesday the 15th, and there's going to be an invite going out for that one as well. Lizzie, I'm going to come to you for this one. This question says, are there opportunities to support victims of domestic abuse as a Villanova student in one of the clinics, or would this only be possible via an externship at the Defenders Association?
I think it's possible in both. So in my clinic work, I had a client who was filing for protection from abuse order against an ex-spouse, I believe. So I did do some domestic violence work directly with a client. We also did a policy project where we were looking at those fun lights there. We did a project where we were looking at the different abuses that women face who were being held in immigration detention facilities. So that was not specifically DV related, but a similar topic area. So yes, and I think that comes up in a lot of the clinics. I'm sure it comes up in the asylum clinic as well as in the civil litigation clinic, where you get a wide range of topics, a wide range of types of cases, and domestic violence, intimate partner violence are all things that are will come up in a lot of the different clinic environments, as well as different externships that you can participate in.
Just to add to that too, really quickly, the civil justice clinic is also transitioning now to only serve survivors of domestic abuse. So the civil justice clinic is one of those clinics that is solely dedicated to working with survivors of domestic violence.
Yeah, so you're going to be able to have that exposure, like Lizzie said, in some of our externship programs, that exact one where Lizzie's working, but then also, of course, through clinics at the law school. So experiential learning as a whole is going to give you exposure to these different areas. There's a question here about a list of externships. So I don't think there's a formal list of every externship available. On our website, though, there is a list of some of our established externship programs, and you'll be able to look up those externships. There's a judicial lottery, and the judicial lottery is going to be able to place you with a local, state, or federal judge as well. But I'm going to throw the website for our externships into the chat box, just so that you all can see the list that's available, at least on our current website. But if you have a specific question, feel free to email me or let me know. I will just say that moving forward, as our students have mentioned, and as Lizzie mentioned, you can create an externship for yourself too. So it's not like whatever is on that list is solely what you can do. If you are able to find a lawyer, an organization, a partner that's going to be able to give you substantive work and oversight and sort of supervise what you're doing, we encourage that all the time, because what you start might continue for other students in the future. And that's how I was able to get my externship as a third-year student. Question here, and if anybody wants to answer this, they can. If not, I can always chat about it a little bit as well. The question says, can you speak about the opportunities offered for exploring international public interest work, whether that be study abroad or externships? Really quickly, I'll mention that we do have, of course, our JD LLM program, which is a study abroad opportunity, not necessarily related to public interest work, but one or two of the programs you can pursue is in public international law. At the host university abroad. And so you can take advantage of that if you're looking to do that joint degree program. But separately from that, there are externships in the past where students have gone abroad for an entire semester. That's fewer and far in between, I would say, just because it does require you to be absent from the law school for an entire semester. But it's not to say that it's never happened before. And I don't know if anybody wants to add in anything there, but just wanted to mention that in regards to what international opportunities might look like.
I'll just quickly mention that the person who advises on the JD LLM program is Diane Edelman. I can put her email address in the chat, and you can reach out to her, because I do know that I know of at least one student recently who did that program, and it was focused on a public international law aspect of it. So I'll throw her name and email address in there, and you can reach out to her. She's always happy to talk to students.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing that. And then let me see here what else we have. Oh, Sharon, I'm coming to you for this question. This is a good one. I mean, it's one that we're proud to be able to chat about. Talk a little bit about where our alumni are, where they're practicing, where they're working. Of course, Lizzie's an alum who's working for the Defender Association of Philly. Where are some of our other alum practicing?
So we have alums who have gone to places you would expect, like the Philadelphia Defender, the Philadelphia DA, Bucks, Chester County, like local county DAs and PDs. But we also have people who are doing that in Cook County, in Chicago, in Seattle, in Colorado, in New Hampshire. Beyond just the PDs and city, we have somebody at the City Attorney of New York, Bronx DA. One of our 3Ls is going to be going to the Brooklyn DA. And those are the kinds of jobs I think people think about and associate with public interest. But we also have alums at the ACLU, the New Jersey Attorney General, the Department of Justice, the U.S. Attorney's Office, Southern Poverty Law Center. We have an alum who started an organization in Somaliland, the Children's Legal Defense Center in Somaliland, which is also a homeless advocacy project, Pennsylvania Health Law Project. There is Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid, just so many different places where people have been and are continuing to go that I just find really exciting.
Thanks, Sharon. Lizzie, I know that I guess I shouldn't presume that you didn't think or maybe have an idea that you wanted to do public defense work when you came into law school, but this question says, if somebody's coming into law school and they know what they want to do, so public defense, for example, but they want to use their time in law school to explore other areas of public interest, is there enough time to do that, to explore public defense work, but also other areas as well when you're in law school? And I guess looking back on your experience, if public defense wasn't what you were looking to do when you started law school specifically, do you feel like you had the ability to expose yourself to all these different areas as a student?
Yes, definitely. So I think there's two tracks. If you're coming in, you kind of want to do public interest, but aren't sure what, or you come in knowing this is exactly what I want to do. And either one is great. I think that if you're coming in with a really specific idea of what you want to do, I think my best advice is still keep that, be aware of that, but also be open to, exploring other course offerings, other clinics, externships and everything. Because I think Jerry said this in one of his answers, that pretty much any class is going to have a public interest component. So if you want to be a public defender, pretty much any class is going to end up being relevant in some way to that type of work. Obviously criminal law and then civil procedure, and even classes that you don't think relate to it at all are going to relate to it in some way. So definitely, take the courses that you think you need to take, the very specific, the criminal courses and the trial advocacy courses and things like that. But also take courses that sound interesting to you, explore new areas that you wouldn't necessarily have thought of. There's plenty of time to do both and to kind of get all the different experiences. And that's something that I think is great about having these 3 years of law school, is that you can kind of feel things out and play around and see about different things that might sound interesting, even if it's not something that you'll ever practice in.
Elisabeth, there's a question here for you. The question says, I was wondering if Elisabeth could discuss trauma-informed lawyering further. Is there training through opportunities with the CSE Institute? Are there other resources that deal with this approach? Go ahead.
Sure. So trauma-informed lawyering is a type of legal practice where the attorney is taking into account the realities and the experiences of the client that they're working with. This is something that the clinic trains everyone on in their clinic orientation. One of our clinic professors, Professor Halder, also wrote an article about trauma-informed lawyering and how to implement trauma-informed lawyering in the classroom. So that's something that we use as well in our clinic orientation. And what it's really meant to do is to ensure that when you're in a situation with a client, maybe you have a client who is non-responsive, they don't answer your calls or your emails or your texts. Trauma-informed lawyering will have the attorney say, well, it's likely not that the client doesn't want to talk to me or that the client is, lazy. It's likely that every time my name pops up on the screen, the client is reminded of the worst period of their life, that I'm unfortunately asking them to relive because I'm preparing a case for them. You know, in my case, it was an asylum case. So people who had to leave their home countries because they feared for their lives. A lot of the times they're not going to be very willing to talk about that time in their life. So trauma-informed lawyering attempts to take into account the experiences of the person that you're working with and the realities of their situation so that you as a representative and an advocate can adjust accordingly and ensure that you are doing the best job for your client and you are meeting your client's needs and giving your client the ability to make decisions for themselves and have agency in their own lives in a place where they've likely not had agency before.
I couldn't have said that any better. That was wonderful. Thank you for that. I know we're right at the 6 o'clock hour here. Last question goes to you, Sharon. It says, does the law school assist students who are interested in public interest fellowships after graduation? I know you talked about that briefly, but just to sort of reiterate.
Yes, in addition to providing resources, we work with students, and in fact, I work with alumni because there are certain types of jobs you can do. So for example, a clerkship postgrad, you preserve your ability to apply for a fellowship. So I also work with alumni, but helping them with their application, helping them with mock interviews, not generally, if you come to me or to Professor Robinson or to any of us, we set up a mock interview with a panel, which is usually what a fellowship interview is, of people who can really prepare you for that type of interview. But even kind of taking a step back, I talk with students as early as first year about what fellowships are and how to start thinking about fellowships, how to connect with organizations that interest you about whether you might be able to do something with them down the road. We do have people, alumni who come in to give presentations, but even beyond that, I connect students with alumni who can help them with that. It's something that I actually find heartbreaking if I find out somebody did it without telling anybody, because it's our job and our mission to work on that type of thing with students to make sure that you have the strongest possibility of being successful.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for your thoughtful responses. I want to thank all of our attendees once again for taking some time out of your busy schedules to join us. If you have questions to follow up on for anybody here, any of our panelists, don't hesitate to reach out to them. I know that they put their email addresses into the chat box earlier. Elizabeth and Jerry just did that again for everybody. But reach out to them, ask them questions, follow up. Thank you to our current students. Thank you to Professor Robinson, Sharon, and my good friend Lizzie for joining and for speaking. Thank you all so much for joining. I hope you all stay safe. And if I can help with anything moving forward in relation to the admissions office or just bringing about any information or connecting you with anybody, don't hesitate to let me know. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great night. Stay safe.